Like to start tonight with a brief land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the United States of America and Israel are settler colonial states that have embraced the erasure of the original people of the land through the violence of resource extraction, environmental desecration, land theft, displacement, family separation, and genocide. It is important to acknowledge the through line of settler colonialism here on Turtle Island and around the world, and its continuing impact on the land that Indigenous peoples have stewarded since time immemorial. We have benefited from that system. We live on these lands today. We must be mindful that we are that impact. We say the land acknowledgement not as some performative gesture, but as an opportunity to reflect, to unlearn, decolonize, and grapple with those truths, and put the wisdom that we've earned to work. Today, and for these past 7 horrifying months, we have had all eyes on Palestine. We recognize Palestinians as Indigenous peoples with an irrefutable connection and right to their ancestral lands. We recognize Israel as an illegal settler colonial state that has inflicted a permanent, hostile, and belligerent occupation and apartheid, and continues to inflict immeasurable violence upon the Palestinian people. At this event and every day, we demand the US government divest from death. When Palestine is free, so are we. I'd like to give you the run of show for tonight. We'll make brief introductions, provide a framing for tonight's event, hear from our guest, get into fundraising, and end with a few minutes of Q&A. My name is Kelly Merrill, and I'm the Deputy Campaign Manager for presidential candidate and Green Party presumptive nominee, Dr. Jill Stein. She is a fierce defender of human rights and the rights of the earth. She is a comrade, mentor, and one of the most courageous truth tellers I know. It is my honor to turn it over to one of the great leaders of the resistance, Dr. Jill Stein.
Thank you so much, Kelly. A big thank you to our honored guest tonight, Tara Houska. We're so deeply honored, pleased that you can join us tonight, and so inspired by your work. And thanks to all of you for joining in. I'll just say a few words about kind of the current moment, and then we'll turn it over to Tara to share some of her struggles, her work, her fight for First Nation rights, for the rights of all of us, for human rights, and for Mother Earth and democracy and the future of the planet. We're going to turn it over to Tara shortly. And I first want to just say a few words to acknowledge what's happening at the moment. We have just, that is, our campaign has just emerged from a big fight in New York State, a fight for democracy, a fight to ensure that resistance to genocide has a voice on the ballot, which the empire very much wants to keep off of the ballot. We are heading into an election with 3 pro-war, pro-genocide, anti-worker, anti-climate campaigns on the ballot, basically heading for ballot status across the country. And we are attempting and are actually very much on track to be the opponent to this hegemony of empire and oligarchy, to be the opponent across the country, so that the people of this country who are very much opposed to empire, oligarchy, and genocide, that is clear from the record. We want to be sure that democracy prevails and that we the people have a voice in this election. We were, I must say, incredibly inspired by the grassroots outpouring of support in New York State. And the results only became apparent actually today as the specific numbers became available. It's true that our campaign, you may have heard, barely fell short of the requirement, but rest assured it is not over. And what's really important here is that we emerged as really an unstoppable force for democracy, peace, against genocide, for human rights. We emerged in this New York battle as an unstoppable force bear in mind, we got about 42,000 signatures. The requirement was 45,000. This was a very oppressive, repressive, politically regressive set of requirements that was adopted by the state of California, largely in secret, without public knowledge, without public debate. They tripled the requirement, basically to keep all grassroots opposition off the ballot. The only candidate who made it on in this petition drive is none other than Robert F. Kennedy, who spent $1 million, who has a billionaire running mate and billionaire supporters for his campaign. He could afford to spend $1 million on this one state. Among the grassroots candidates, that is our campaign, Cornel West, Claudia de la Cruz was discouraged from even entering into the race and did not formally participate in the effort because the ballot requirement, excuse me, of 45,000 signatures is really unattainable, essentially unattainable by a people-powered campaign. The fact that we came so close is absolutely astounding. The other grassroots campaigns collected about 4,000 signatures, and we got 42,000. The best that others could do in this very short time frame at this time of year, when you don't have like the big summer festivals and things like that. This is an extremely oppressive time to run that kind of a ballot drive, especially with this 45,000 requirement. Even the libertarians, okay, the libertarians, which have access to a fair amount of money, they have been on the ballot in every state in the past 2 presidential elections. They've been able to meet the requirements in every state for 2 separate election cycles. They too got under 5,000 signatures. So we have really, the lesson here is not only that the empire is doubling down, but that we are rising up. This campaign is an unstoppable force, and we have only begun to fight. Many people, because of the mainstream media suppression that we exist, that we're here to fight, a pro-worker, anti-war, anti-genocide, climate emergency campaign that has basically been essentially snuffed out. There's really hardly a mention of it whatsoever in the mainstream media, even in the neoliberal, liberal media as well, like Democracy Now! They've never found reason to give us time whatsoever in the many months that we've been in this now. So, in spite of that, the fact that we were able to mobilize here, and many people were only learning about it and joining in like the last 10 days and saying, why haven't we heard before? So what I want to assure everyone is that there is a legal strategy going forward, and we're still investigating that and which ones we will be pursuing. But there are at least 3 legal strategies. We are determined to fight. What we've seen more than anything coming out of the battle so far is that we are an unstoppable force. We see that, in everything right now. We see that in pipeline resistance. We see that in the actions of the water protectors, which Tara will be talking about tonight. We see this on our campuses in the uprising against genocide, in the uprising against police suppression. We are not going away. We're an absolutely unstoppable force. A new poll just came out of people under age 25 showing that the majority feel like politicians, that is, your mainstream politicians, are completely untrustworthy and are essentially scoundrels. This is nothing new. Poll after poll shows that. So empire and oligarchy are quaking in their boots that word gets out, because movements like the fight for water, the fight for native sovereignty, the fight against genocide, both the continuing genocide in this country and the very flagrant, unspeakable genocide going on now right before our very eyes. No other news in the last 2 days was that the weapons that are murdering women and children right now in Rafah are are US sponsored, that, this is what the students are screaming about. We ourselves, we're at Washington University in St. Louis, where the protest was against the funding for Boeing and the contracts with Boeing. Well, it's actually Boeing weapons, which are being used to murder women and children right now in Gaza. So we take actually strength and inspiration from the current outcome of the New York ballot access battle. We have only just begun to fight, so consider it cause for doubling down and keeping the heat on now across the country to be sure that an anti-genocide, pro-worker, anti-war climate emergency campaign is on the ballot across the country. And with that, I want to turn it over to Tara to share some of her incredibly groundbreaking, principled, inspirational work that has long been an inspiration to me. I first heard about Tara's work around the time of Standing Rock, and it has been an inspiration continuously, and to follow her progress and her willingness to put her body on the line and to put her future on the line, and what she is doing together with other water protectors and First Nations and their supporters is absolutely a part of this unstoppable movement. So thank you so much, Tara, for being here tonight.
Oh, miigwech, thank you. And thank you all for your hard work to get to yourself to this point right now, to be a candidate and pushing so hard on the value systems, I think, that are so badly needed. I'm coming to you guys from the White Earth Reservation, where we just wrapped up an all-day tribal water summit discussing the many issues around this specific region up here in the Great Lakes. And I think it's like a microcosm of what's happening all across this place, Turtle Island, and the world, which is a outright theft and violation on behalf of industry, on behalf of oligarchs, extraction at every single level of being, with a whole host of scientists, thinkers, policymakers, lawyers, doctors, everyone you can imagine, from the actual fabric of what makes a society, trying so desperately to push back and to defend our communities. I mean, we heard today from a bunch of folks who are focused on public health about the horrific impacts of industry, whether it's agricultural runoff or fossil fuel extraction, or now the new focus on precious minerals, what that does to a population, what that means in terms of healthcare for an already degraded system of infrastructure and poor or less than services provided to people in a place where we have GoFundMe's to actually be our insurer. I mean, that's the state of affairs of the United States. And it is just appalling to hear that and to have that compounded by these voices of science who are collecting all the data, who are very impartial, who are telling us things that should frankly be pushing every last politician and decision maker to be making massive strides towards decarbonizing, towards reforestation, towards ending extractive industries' horrific impacts on our environment. But instead, kind of the opposite is happening, right? I mean, that's what a country of citizens united really looks like. It looks like politicians who are sponsored by industry, politicians who should be wearing, in my assessment, they should be wearing, like sponsorship jackets and tell us who actually sponsors them. It's the Boeings, it's the Enbridges, it's the Keystone XLs, it's the oligarchs of the world. And now the Musks, right, that are going to be pushing to extract all the minerals that remain in Turtle Island. I guess I wanted to share that, the reason that I've chosen to join all of you and to lend my voice, I guess, to this important campaign is I have seen Dr. Stein through the years, including at Standing Rock. You are a person who actually was willing to come out to the ground, to the people, That is not something we hear or see every day. Even folks that I worked for, like Bernie Sanders, right? Like I worked on his 16 campaign. We never got him out to Standing Rock, you know, even as we were all being so brutalized by the Obama administration. So I just deeply have a lot of gratitude for that and a lot of respect for that continuing connectivity to grassroots, to the ground. I mean, that's what I see. You know, that was my takeaway of the summit today was, you know, I think it's been a takeaway that I've in many spaces seen, which is we have each other, you know, we have us. Both the political parties are very, very compromised in the United States, and the fascism rise in the world is ongoing, right? Like there's pushbacks, obviously, like there's some flipping that happened in Brazil and in other places, but seeing what's happening in Gaza, seeing what's happening in the West Bank, seeing what's happening to Palestinian relatives so blatantly being live streamed, and to see no country step in a real way. I mean, that should tell us the state of affairs, that we are all expendable in the eyes of a societal fabric that is based entirely on profit and extraction. So, all that said, I mean, I think the task and the goal for all of us, whether it's the presidential election, whether it's grassroots organizing, or you know, whatever we're doing in our daily lives, it is to remember and to reinforce the fact that we have each other. We have us to build, and I do see momentum. I see the momentum of the college students giving so much inspiration and Mad Inspire, which is a continuation of, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement, of the movement that was at Standing Rock, of Ferguson, of all of the activism and push for change that has happened to bring us to this point. You know, there has been this steady rise, and as the oligarchs and fascists have risen, so have we. And I think we're in a really unique time in history to decide which way we're going to go as human beings. So thank you. I'll turn it back.
Thank you. Tara, I wonder if you can fill people in on the status. We spoke about a week ago, a little more than that, you know, and you reassured me that you were not about to go to jail for many years, which was the last thing I had heard that made me extremely worried about the charges that were being thrown against you related to defending, you know, water and land from Line 3. And I wonder if you can just kind of summarize and what you said about how that broke and why it broke is also, you know, just really important and speaks volumes about, you know, this kind of unity in the face of fascism that's kind of happening. And yeah, I wonder if you'll tell that story now.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, something that has been a really powerful, I guess, indication to me as somebody who's oftentimes out on front lines, where I am literally putting myself and my body on the line and in front of a machine that's hell-bent on destroying the earth, is seeing the diversity and differing perspectives that are now all sharing these spaces. So in my home territory here, where we were fighting the Line 3 line, that looked like watching a biology teacher alongside a grandmother, alongside an anarchist, alongside a communist, alongside a liberal, like every last person you could imagine from every walk of life, all walking together to try to defend the earth because we recognize we have one home. The sad pieces, I think, or at least like the pieces of concern as a society that I think about a lot, are the incredible repression that is happening, and oppression of folks defending land, defending water. These really gross attempts at our rights and our voices being entirely removed from the equation, which might mean domestic terrorism charges for folks that are done in fighting the to protect the Woolonee Forest in Atlanta. It might mean what's happening to us over in the Mountain Valley Pipeline fight, which is being sued by a company to the tune of $4 million apiece and facing, in my case, I'm facing a year in jail. Others are facing more time. Some people have already been thrown in jail for like 60 days, longer, indefinite periods of not even receiving bail. I mean, I think the industry is very much colluding with a lot of governance structures to push their interests. I mean, we see that in Michigan too, right? Where like you have the state of Michigan saying no to Line 5 and Enbridge actually suing the state as a foreign company.
Wow.
And the United States government backing that foreign company saying it's in the national interest, right? Like those are the levels of corruption that are happening in real time. But I think it also, to me, anytime I see that level of response, it also means that there's that level of fear, right? Like that there is a serious level of apprehension and concern around the strength of our voices, around what it means to be a group of water protectors in the forests or on the plains or in the desert, all coming together as community members, as family members. We are the power, right? It is the people. This is the people's movement.
And just another through line here is the police violence that we're facing, and it's the domestic terrorism charges that are now being leveled against land and water protectors. It's also the violence being thrown down on campuses, and not only campuses but in the streets here in New York City. There was an all-out assault on protesters in Bay Ridge, I think, in the south part of Brooklyn, at an annual commemoration of the Nakba. The police just attacked and were brutally pummeling people, like fists to their head once they were down on the ground, and really totally brutalizing people with any provocation whatsoever. And we're just seeing this more and more. And at the same time, we have, these training programs for cops now, which are basically being trained by the Israeli occupation forces in these very brutal and dehumanizing tactics. And then these riot police are being sent in with absolutely zero provocation to students who are simply peacefully protesting on campus. So it's like, when we talk about fascism and the dangers of Donald Trump, it's really important for people to remember that fascism is already here. The violence is already here. And much of it is actually being spearheaded by Democrats. In New York City, it was Mayor Eric Adams, a Democrat, who was being advised by various billionaire supporters of his that he had to bring out the police and send them into campuses. And you had Bill Ackman, who was one of the funders for the Zionist mob that attacked, I think it was the University of Southern California, where just the most brutal stuff was being perpetrated. And at the various campuses, they have used tasers, they have used armored vehicles, they are using pepper spray and tear gas and other like prohibited horrific chemicals on people. And the Zionist mob was throwing firecrackers into the encampment. That was also at USC, and that was in part sponsored by Bill Ackman, the billionaire. So the police violence is horrific, and its reach gets bigger and bigger all the time. So it's really important, that we have to stand up and resist that. And I'm just hearing people feel so desperate about the tightening grip of police, and saying, so how can we resist this now, when we're being violently attacked? And I want to, remind people that political resistance is a very important part of resistance. And the more desperate I become personally about what's being done in Rafah now, and the resistance of not only the Israeli criminals, but also the US war criminals, Biden in particular, and his administration and the leadership in both Democratic and Republican parties that are all supporting this with our tax dollars, our weapons. And they're basically giving the thumbs up and refusing to say that there's a red line that Joe Biden has to observe. And he's saying there is no red line, and that it's fine with him. The attacks going on in Rafah right now do not cross his red line. And it's like hard to imagine what would cross his red line. Is it like when they start dropping nuclear bombs or what? They seem so crazy. And then the actions of the highest court in the land, the International Court of Justice and the criminal court, as they issue arrest warrants, they just double down in their fascist response to say that, well, they're going to then sanction, and the Israelis are saying that they will target the families of the judges in these courts. It's just, it's mob rule here. It's the worst kind of mob rule, and international law and human rights are being dismantled at a time that the US should remember it's not going to be top dog anymore. In fact, it's not top dog anymore. So if there is no structure of international law and human rights, we ourselves are going to be the victims of the law of the jungle as we ourselves, unleash it. So it's really critical that we stand up. And fighting in an election is part of how to do that. As Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has and it never will. We have to be that demand, and we've got to make that demand in the halls of power. And as Alice Walker said, the biggest way people give up power is by not knowing we have it to start with. We do have it. It's important to remember we have it. And there are growing signs that we have it in this election as well. And when you have 3 pro-genocide, pro-war candidates who are effectively splitting the pro-war vote among each other and the pro-genocide vote, and then you have only one campaign on track to be a unifying vehicle on the ballot across the country against genocide, against war, for workers' rights and human rights, and for a climate emergency, when you have all those movements that are coming together in an election, getting the word out through our own grassroots, networks and connections. We don't need the toxic helping hand of the mainstream media. We can do this ourselves. We're enormously networked. With the courage of our convictions, we can stand up and fight here in a way that's absolutely mind-boggling and earth-changing. And by standing up, with the courage of our convictions, we really do have the potential to transform our future. Any thoughts you want to share at this point? Any further thoughts, Tara?
I would say I know that at this moment, at least for myself, and I think for many of us, this is probably one of the harder moments in the walk that I've had, the journey that I've had to see the level of violence and harm and destruction that's happening so blatantly, right? Like without end. It's been, even as a person who knows that our people endured and survived genocide, to see it in real time is something different for the soul and for the spirit. And I think that can paralyze us, right? Like that can actually bring us to a place of like, there is no hope, right? If they can do this to them, they can do this to anybody, which I think is the lesson that we should also be seeing, right? If they can do this to them, they can do this to anybody. Palestine is us. In our hundreds, in our millions, in our billions, we are all Palestinian, right? Like there's a reason that chant exists. There's a reason why everyone is saying this is a moment to lay bare every last bit of fascism and exploitation that has been occurring, the grip that has been tightening and tightening and tightening without folks even knowing it, right? I mean, I'm a person that lives in the water protected realm. I've seen many grandmothers thrown to the ground over the years trying to stop an oil pipeline from ruining a river. But to see, college professors with their wrists broken and their ribs broken by police is, I think, quite shocking for many folks. And with all that, I think like it is a moment to not sit within ourselves and be paralyzed, but it is a moment to act, right? Like that is what Palestinians are asking us to do. That is what nature is asking us to do. That is what our children are asking us to do. Our grandchildren are asking us to do. We have to act. And that means acting in every last possible facet of resistance and change that we can. So use your voice, use your power. And yeah, just, I don't think that we should lose hope. I think if anything, the children that are stuck in Gaza, the children that are fighting back in the West Bank, I think give me so much hope, to see the beauty that still is there, even amidst the worst of humanity. There's still beauty, there's still love and hope there.
And it really feels like this utter, crisis on steroids, this genocide on steroids, it illustrates the worst of humanity, but it also brings out the best of humanity. And the fact that, Reuters poll very early on showed 68% of Americans wanted an immediate ceasefire and a diplomatic solution, despite the wall of nonstop propaganda. It's incredible. The fact that students are rising up and, putting their lives on the line, literally, and their futures, their careers, their degrees, everything, and they're not stopping. That, that First Nations are doing the same thing and raising the issue of Palestine. There was a climate justice demonstration, I think, in California at one of the oil, profiteers convention going on. And it was a climate justice convention, and it was also end the genocide. I shouldn't say it was climate justice. It was a climate justice demonstration and a blockade. But their message was also, to end the genocide in Palestine. We're just seeing that more and more. And I too, as like nauseating and sickening as it is to hear the news every day of the latest atrocities and massacres, it's also so empowering right now, because it feels like we are not only taking on genocide in Palestine, we are taking on the empire that makes that genocide, inevitable, and one of many, genocides perpetrated by empire and, end stage capitalism in its, in its quest to seize, the resources of Native peoples and the planet all across the globe. So it's really a very profound time, and it feels to me like the world has engaged like never before. And so many of the people that we see out there at our campaign events have never been politically active before, or they have been lifelong Democrats and they've had it. And they understand that this is not only about Gaza, that Gaza is a microcosm of what's wrong with empire. As Ronald Reagan said, Israel is the unsinkable battleship for the United States in the Middle East, basically positioning us to control oil in this very important, resource. And what's happening here is not just, for the moment, it's not just one battle. It's really a very big paradigm shift that's happening. And people just really understand that there is no future on the trajectory that we're on, whether it's the climate collapse, whether it is, the crushing and collapsing economy that is better and better for the top 2 or 3% and worse for everybody else, whether it is the endless war and the increasing militarization. This is all impoverishing and endangering the people of the world, including here in the United States. And we vote, and we also talk, and we talk to our neighbors. And we really do have the potential. We're still, like 6 months out from the election. We have the potential to really mobilize in this election in a way that they have never seen before. And when you have 3 pro-genocide candidates and 1 anti-genocide, the vote can be split in a way that an election can be won with just as little as 26% of the vote. So don't consider it out of reach. Don't consider us just window dressing here. We are probably, the most important, movement that is speaking through us, a movement for humanity, the planet, and democracy. That movement is rising up right now, and we can give it a voice and a place front and center in this election by continuing to, to hold the fort and to keep pushing. This is like our destiny right now. We're deciding whether there will be a future on the planet, and we need to fight for democracy and justice like our lives depend on it in this election, because in fact they actually do. And elections are powerful tools. They are not the be all end all, but you really need to hold power accountable through elections. Failing to do that, they'll continue to do whatever they want. We have to hold them accountable. So big thank you again to Tara for all you've done and the trailblazing that you have done and you continue to do. And thanks to everyone out there. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Jason Call, who will come on and help translate some of this emergency of the moment into more tools that we can use to actually fight a legal battle, to launch a legal case, to be sure that we are on the ballot in New York State, and to continue fighting. We have 2 more difficult ballot access battles, not as hard as the one we've just fought, and really emerged with flying colors, I think. We've got 2 more ballot access battles that we're about to plunge into, and we badly need your support to ensure that this campaign for workers' rights, to end genocide, an anti-war campaign, and a climate emergency campaign. We are the only one, and we need your support to ensure that we don't lose a step here and that we build on New York and the incredible, staggering achievement of the volunteers who pushed their way to 42,000 signatures when the most empowered grassroots campaigns could otherwise not get to 4,000. This is just incredible for what this says about our growing power. And we want to come out of New York and renew our resources so that we can keep going and build from here. So let me turn it over to Jason to talk us through some of that power raising.
Absolutely. And I first want to give thanks to Tara Houska for being here and inspiring us. It's activists like Tara that give the rest of us some direction, some grounding in what the real fight is. People who are willing to put everything on the line to ensure justice. And where I feel we are is that, looking back on the long history of Western imperialism, we are really at the culmination of 500 years of colonial domination that has been extractive and exploitative and, just flat out murderous to indigenous peoples all across the planet. It's not just North America, it's South America, it's Australia, it's Africa. And people today are suffering still, where, we here in the United States tend to be somewhat sheltered from a lot of things that are going on around the world. We have to keep in our minds constantly that not just in Palestine, but, to mention the genocides that are occurring in Ethiopia and Sudan and Congo, in Myanmar, and many places around the world. This is all extensions of the things that we enjoy in our lives and the imperialism that it takes to bring those comforts to us. They are done on the backs of exploited peoples everywhere. And I think we have a responsibility in this moment, not just to work to save democracy in this country, because we are clearly under a fascist threat from both parties, but also to make a better world for all the people who have been exploited for over the centuries. So it is, and I want to say also that it is a very difficult job to move from what is such a weighty human subject to say now we have to pivot to say the one thing or part of what is going to help us succeed is to have people donate. We are a grassroots campaign. We do not take any corporate money. A lot has been made about RFK making it onto the New York ballot, spending $1 million to do so. We did spend some money. We spent a couple $100,000 in New York, and we fell short by a couple of thousand votes, just to explain to people how high the barrier has been set in some of these states. What we have in front of us is not only legal challenges to New York, and we intend to pursue every legal challenge that we can in New York to ensure that we are on the ballot, but we also have a big hill to climb in Illinois. Illinois is the next state where petitions are due to get the Stein campaign onto the ballot. They are due June 24th, and we need to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars in order to make sure that that fight succeeds also. What we have seen, and I want to say this from being on the ground in New York, I was with Jill and the team over the last week in New York, the enthusiasm, the excitement, the relief in people's faces when they realize that they have somebody standing up for them. They know they cannot count on the Republicans. They cannot count on the Democrats. They cannot count on RFK for a just political system, a just economic system. And people are really looking to the left, and in particular the Stein campaign. You should have seen when some people recognized Jill. We were out there in Bay Ridge, and just to note, in Bay Ridge, we were at the Islamic Center in Bay Ridge in Brooklyn a short week after protesters for Gaza had been brutalized by police. We listened to people speak who said, they had been thrown to the ground by police and literally knee dropped on their head. So these tactics used by the police to suppress us, they're not new. They have been used in many other places over the last few decades, but they are increasing in their intensity. Having been in St. Louis with Jill to see the army of police officers coming towards us, using their bikes as battering rams, knocking us down, and then charging Jill with assault for literally falling backwards and trying to keep her balance. That is what they are doing to us. And the only option is for us to fight back as hard as we can. And so part of that fighting back is, if you have the capacity to do so, to contribute to this campaign. Again, the two big things that we have on our plate right now are making sure that we can fight the legal battles that we're going to need to fight in New York to ensure our ballot access there, and to hire petitioners. We're going to have a lot of volunteer help in Illinois, but again, it's another very high signature count. We need 25,000 valid signatures in Illinois, which means, just as we were going to try to do in New York, we wanted to try and double that. So we are looking at trying to get 50,000 signatures in New York, so that the Democratic Party and their armies of lawyers cannot nitpick us off the ballot, which we know they are going to try and do. We have already heard that both the Democrats and the Republicans are going to be going through RFK's 130,000 signatures that he paid $1 million for, because he did not have a whole lot of grassroots support in New York. I want to make sure that people understand that. Many, roughly half of our signatures came from volunteer support, right? RFK paid for the vast majority of his. But the Republicans and the Democrats are going to go through his papers with a fine-tooth comb, and they're going to knock off everybody they can. And that's what they're going to try to do to us when we submit in Illinois. So in order to make sure that we can get the signature count that we need people to contribute to the campaign. So that's what I want to lean into right now. If you have the capacity, I'm just going to start out with some big numbers. And when I say this, people often will say, well, there's no way I can afford that. And I always open this up to saying, I couldn't afford a maximum contribution myself, right? I'm working class. But if we do have big pocket donors watching us, either in our webinar right now or watching us out there in social media space, the maximum contribution to the campaign is $3,300 in the primary and $3,300 in the general. So if people were able to drop in $3,300 right now, we couldn't accept any more money from you for the primary. We could take some more for the general. But I would just ask if you can make that maximum contribution and you recognize that this campaign is the campaign that is going to challenge the empire in this country, and to parlay that into challenging empire around the world, please make that maximum contribution and donate $3,300. So I'm not going to say anything more about that right now, but that is the limit, and we would certainly appreciate it. So do we have any Q&A? I just want to say that there is a Q&A button on the bottom. And if anybody wanted to ask some questions, we can kind of intersperse some fundraising with some questions. The best place to do that, because I'm not watching the chat, the best place to do that is to put your questions in the Q&A, and we will try and get to those questions as we're going along here. So I'm going to drop the number down significantly lower. We do have a goal of raising $25,000 tonight. We're going to spend probably another half an hour talking to people, doing Q&A, and making asks. So I'm going to ask right now if anybody in the chat, and people will let me know if somebody is able to do this. If you make a big donation, or even if you make a small donation, we're going to call your name out. We do appreciate everybody who donates, regardless how big or how small. Understand all contributions are important. If we have a bunch of people who are contributing $10, $15, $25, that is fantastically important to the campaign. That's, probably around the amount that most people can reasonably afford in a week or a 2-week period. So, I don't want anybody to think that your contribution is too small. But if anybody was able to donate $1,000 right now, we will shout your name out. We'll let people know and give you a big shout out and appreciate you very much. Jill, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to let people know that the eyes of the world are upon us right now. There are about 2,700 people watching live on social media right now, and about 90 that are in this Zoom right now. So, this is pretty amazing. So thanks to everybody. Keep up the good work. A lot of people are tuning in.
And we do have a couple of really good questions in the chat. I want to acknowledge Bridget, who has asked in the chat, how can I help get signatures for Pennsylvania? I can only donate time. If all you are able to do for the campaign is say, hey, I'm going to pick up a petition seat and I'm going to go get some signatures, we would love that. Understand that, when you give your time to go get signatures, it costs the campaign, like when we have to pay people to petition for us, it costs the campaign, anywhere from $6 to $10 a signature to pay people to be out on the streets. So if you just want to translate that into, hey, I can go out there and I can get 10 or 20 signatures from people that I know, that is translates to a financial contribution for us, because that's money that we don't have to spend paying people to go do signature gathering for us. So Bridget, this is an excellent question. The signatures for Pennsylvania, if you go to our ballot access map, and somebody can, if they can drop the ballot access in the chat there, we have a whole ballot access map that tells you who the leads are that you can contact to get in touch with, to access a petition, any particular rules. Georgia just dropped it in the chat there, any particular rules around, because one of the difficult things about ballot access is all the different states have different rules, similar rules, but sometimes there's a tweak here and a tweak there that we have to pay attention to. So go to the ballot access map, click on your state, in this case Pennsylvania, or scroll down on the side down to Pennsylvania, and it will give you the contact. Often it will get the petition will be linked there. You can download it, you can print it out. And just email us, whatever email address is on there. Make sure if you have any questions, you email us to get those questions clarified. We're very responsive when people have questions. You can also join our field Slack. Slack is an online tool for organizing, and we have a channel for every state. And if you wanted to join your state's channel, then you could get in there and you can ask some questions that are specific to your state right there. So Thank you for that question, Bridget. But we are petitioning in probably 24 states right now. Many of them's deadlines are not until the end of July. The big ones that we have ahead of us right now are Illinois and Indiana. Illinois due June 24th. Indiana due July 1st. And then I think all of the rest of them are the end of July, July 29th or later. So for many states, we've got a window. For Illinois and Indiana, the window is very short. But please check out the ballot access. And again, put out a donation ask. If anybody can donate $1,000, we will shout your name out. And I'm going to go to the next question. Maddie, Jill, do you plan on coming to the Oregon, Washington area? So we do not have any plans immediately to come out to Oregon and Washington. Oregon is already on the ballot. If you're in Oregon, you will already be able to. Thank you, Mark, for $15. Appreciate it very much. And let's see. I'm going to say Bruce Getting, Paige, Allison, Wesley Hurd, all donated. I didn't see the amounts. Mark Lane, Tyler Russell, Mark Schofield, all donated. Appreciate it. Keep it going. Keep it going. But about Oregon and Washington, I happen to be in Washington State. I'm about 40 miles north of Seattle. I will say excitedly that Washington has gone past the amount required for signatures. So now we're just going to pad those numbers before we do submission, but we will be on the ballot in Washington for sure. Jill, did you want to mention anything?
Yeah, no, I was just going to respond to a question, which is, when will you know if you are in the ballot in New York? And we can't answer that yet. The election commission actually has not rendered their formal opinion. We are expecting that our petition will be rejected, because the count, when we were finally able to add up the numbers, the count doesn't quite do it. So they are likely to reject the petition on that basis. Also, there were some technical issues around electors' names, which are complete nonsense, but they're probably going to use that as a basis also for rejecting. So we're pretty sure that the ruling at the moment is to reject, but we are preparing to file at least one or more lawsuits or join some existing lawsuits, which actually the Libertarians are preparing a suit now. There are several suits in the works. So we can't say exactly when those will be ruled on, but this much we can say. If we do not get on the ballot, and we're going to do our damnedest to be on, if by some chance we're not, we will run an intensive write-in campaign. And while write-ins, they're a lesser form of running, but when you have a motivated electorate and you have time to get the word out, you can win through a write-in. Joe Biden just ran a write-in campaign in the state of New Hampshire for the primary. He was not allowed on the ballot because the Democratic Party, the National Party, was at war with the Democratic Party in New Hampshire, so they wouldn't put Biden's name on the ballot. But he ran a write-in and got almost 70% of the vote. Just proof of principle. We can do this one way or another.
We have a long way to go. We have a very motivated electorate, right? I see Aisha in the chat. We have a motivated electorate. I want to give a massive shout out to Elise Tack, donated $1,000. Elise,
Wow.
very humble, says best I can do. That's amazing. It's amazing, Elise. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that very much. So,
and there's a question here that says you can't win Texas via a write-in, but New York is possible. That is correct. Texas will not count write-in votes. New York does if you have gone through the proper registration for the write-in, which is simple to do. We will do it. So that's our last resort, but we're not resigning ourselves to that yet. We are intending to be on the ballot for a full-powered campaign. And a big shout out and thank you to Michael Dublin, an amazing powerhouse candidate for the North Carolina Green Party for Congress, who pitched in $75. Thank you so much, Michael. Check out our our Zoom video from
From 2 nights ago.
2 nights ago, which was just amazing, knock your socks off, the kind of team that is running for office at the national level. And there are amazing candidates at the state and local level as well. But at the national level, we have an incredible team, and Michael Dublin is one of these amazing people. Thank you so very much, Michael.
Mario Diaz, $1,000 from Mario Diaz.
Oh,
Thank
man.
you so much,
Wow.
Mario.
Thank
That is
you,
amazing.
Mario.
Amazing. Jackie, I want you to know that if you go to the YouTube channel and Jill's YouTube channel, that candidate form should be posted there. Thank you. Mario Diaz, $1,000. Linda, is that Linda Thompson? $100.
Yes,
Thank you
yes,
so
that is
much.
Linda. Thank you, Linda.
Yeah, and the Green Party we already have ballot access in Texas. We already have ballot access in California. Illinois is really the big one on our plate right now, Illinois and Indiana. And not to discount, we've got, Georgia says we're around 4,200 right now. Hopefully in the next, half an hour, we can bring that total up to $25,000. That is our goal for tonight. So yeah, $1,000, $100, $25, whatever you can give, please contribute to this campaign, because we are going to be the one that is across the country. And like we have said, we do intend to, by hook or by crook, as they say, get onto the ballot in New York. But certainly we are making challenges all across the country. We have petitions going in 24 states right now. Many of the states have 2,000 signatures, 5,000 signatures. I think we have Ohio is a 5,000 signature, where we already have 8,000. We're trying to push it to 10,000 before we submit. Missouri is 10,000. They've already got somewhere around 12,000. We're trying to push it to 16,000 before they submit. I want to give a shout out to our Nevada team, where they had a 10,000 signature requirement, and they submitted over 27,000 signatures. Now, I'd like to see the Democrats try and pick that one apart. They will try. They will try. So that is where Ada Hamdan, $500. Thank you so much.
Man,
Which
thank you.
is amazing. So yeah, if you are on a limited budget, we are absolutely not asking anybody to push themselves beyond what their personal budget will allow. Whatever you contribute, don't put yourself out. Make sure that it's that you're leaving yourself that comfort margin. We are not asking for people who cannot afford to make a financial contribution to make more. I don't want anybody to feel that pressure. That's not what this is about at all. So whatever you can do is gratefully accepted by this campaign. And as we mentioned, if you are in a state that is still petitioning, and please go to the ballot access map, all the states that you see in yellow on that ballot access map, we are actively petitioning. And if you're like, hey, I live in this state, where can I get a petition? I'll pitch in. I can't do the financial contribution, but I'll certainly go around my neighborhood and collect these signatures. Then we are also extremely grateful for that help, because that does save the campaign money. So appreciate it very much. I'm going to go to the chat one more time. So we did let's see here. Teresa has a question about federal matching funds. I would like to better understand what it means to get federal matching funds for getting 5% of the vote. So there are two different aspects for federal matching funds. One has to do with while the primary is ongoing. And that means if you raise a certain minimum threshold of money, and it's $5,000 in 20 different states, then what you can do is you can file an application with the federal government. They have a pool of money that comes from when you file your taxes. They say, would you like to contribute $3 to the presidential election fund? That's that pool of money that's just sitting there for campaigns like ours. The other campaigns don't use it. Democrats and Republicans don't use it because there are restrictions that come along with that money. You can only spend so much. There are spending limits. Well, the Democrats and the Republicans don't want spending limits. They want to spend $1 billion on an election. But for a campaign like us, we file an application and then everybody's contribution is matched up to $250. I want to tell you, we filed that application last week. So we will be receiving our first installment of federal matching funds, and anybody here who donates up to $250 will have that money matched by the federal government. Your money is essentially doubled by the federal government with that pool of money is there. We've already made the application. We're very, and that in itself, the fact that we can raise the money from a distribution of states to allow us to apply for those federal matching funds, that in itself shows people the strength of this campaign and the widespread appeal of this campaign. But just know, anything up to $250 is going to get doubled for this campaign. So let's just throw that out there right now. Does anybody want to donate $250 and have your money matched by the federal government? That would be fantastic. So let's see here. I want to recognize Judith Ann Lee and Anthony Weller, $100. Appreciate that very much. I'm scrolling back here to see there are some very long comments in the chat here that's making it hard for me to scroll back. Douglas Larry, $75. Dr. Suha Gul, $100. I appreciate it very much. So if anybody can donate $250, just know that that money is going to be matched. Now, the second part of matching funds is if we make 5% of the national vote. So when all of the votes are tallied across the country, if we get a total of 5% of the votes nationwide, which I think in this election, we certainly expect to blow 5% out of the water. What that means is in the 2028 election, assuming the world hasn't completely collapsed by then, in the 2028 election, somewhere around $20 million that the Green Party gets to use in the 2028 election. It is a massive influx of money for a grassroots party and will really, really help us build and grow for the future. So that's the two different kinds of federal matching funds that there are. Jill, do you want to say anything more about that?
No, I think you covered the bases pretty well there. I just want to encourage more people to pitch in, and your donation will be doubled basically. So, if you can throw in $20, it's effectively a $40 contribution. And I want to give a shout out for Valerie, who just pitched in $25. Thank you so much, Valerie. Whatever you can contribute is huge. And let's see, I want to answer a question that flew by a little while ago from someone said that people were really interested, their friends were interested in this campaign, but they say that we're wasting our votes. What do we say to that? Well, there's so many things to say to that, like anyone who says that you're wasting your vote by voting for what you want, the actual saying that bears repeating here is that it's better to vote for what you want and not get it than vote for what you don't want and get it. And it's like breaking up with an abusive relationship. You have to keep voting for the Democrats because you voted for them before, and that's not wasting your vote. Well, it's worse than wasting your vote. If it's about you don't get free public higher education, you don't get the health care that you need, and which we can afford. We actually save $500 billion a year by moving to a single payer system. It's about continuing genocide and this, outrageous military spending that consumes half of our congressional budget every year. That's what you get. It's worse than wasting your vote to give your affirmation and your support to that agenda, which is deadly for you, for your family, for your job, for your health, for the climate, and for the world. That's worse than wasting your vote. It's not wasting your vote to stand up and use your power. Your vote is your power in a democracy. So I'd say, just throw the book at them if that's what they say to you. Tell them they are protecting their abuser, like being in an abusive relationship where you keep defending, the person who is abusing you and making excuses for them. Don't make excuses for your political abuser. We have to stand up and get our lives back and get our politics back. Our lives actually depend on doing this. This isn't just the right thing to do. It's the absolutely essential thing to do. I just have no patience whatsoever for people who are still, reciting that kind of blather as though it was some kind of religious catechism that they've been taught. This is just complete nonsense. We have
Well,
to stand up for ourselves.
Look at what the lesser of two evils has brought us right now. This is what voting, some people have characterized this as the ratchet effect. The Democrats move to the right to appease the Republicans, and then they resist all attempts of the progressives to try and pull them back to the left. And it just keeps clicking that way, clicking that way, clicking that way. And it's done so since Ronald Reagan was in office. I say this with a is not hyperbolic at all, that every Democratic president well, I shouldn't say this. Every Democratic president since Ronald Reagan has been objectively more conservative than Richard Nixon. There were a lot of good things that passed under a Nixon administration, even though Nixon was not a great guy. And if we think about where we are in terms of income equality now, in terms of environment now, in terms of military engagement around the world, and of course the Vietnam War was going on when Nixon was president, but now we've got wars all over the world. We've got bases all over the world. We've got, this global military hegemony that is saber rattling with China, that is trying to get us into a nuclear war with Russia. I thought we had left that behind when the Berlin Wall came down. When the wall came down, I was in, my freshman year in college, I think, was when that happened. And I think we all had hope for a brighter future at that point, that the Cold War was behind us and that we would enter an era of peace and cooperation. Well, that has not happened. It has been more, Western imperialism just gone on steroids. This campaign is the one campaign that is speaking up against that. And wants a future that is not on the brink of nuclear war constantly. So, we're appealing to everybody out there to help fund us, get us on the ballot in Illinois, help us fight the legal challenges in New York, help us do a clean sweep of all of the remaining states so that we can be on the ballot all across the country. It is going to take some money, and that's what we're asking for right here to now. We're Andre Romanoff, $50. Thank you so much. Mark Dolman, Nadia Nouri, Maha Bulaban. Thank you so much. We're at about $5,300. We are hoping for 25,000 tonight. That is our goal. I'm going to say again, if anybody can donate $250, that is going to be matched. And let's see here. Randy is asking, I still don't hear an answer to the question. I'm wasting my vote if I vote third party. I think Jill just did answer that.
Let me just add to that. If you want a really simple phrase, the truth of the matter is that is propaganda. You are not wasting your vote. You are supporting the agenda. You are supporting the solutions that we desperately and urgently need, whether we win the office or we simply push the envelope to stop genocide, to dismantle empire, to invest in what we actually need here at home. You have to stand up. I mean, it's just nonsense. I'd say there are a gazillion reasons why you are not wasting your vote. Respond that you're doing worse than wasting your vote. You're actually casting a vote against yourself, your survival, your job, your future, the planet, your children, your ability to have a place to live. 50% of renters right now cannot afford to keep a roof over their heads. That is, half of renters are financially severely stressed. So I'd say don't succumb to that propaganda. That's what we've been bludgeoned into thinking. It's nonsense. Don't accept it. And you need you know, you need to respond with the courage of your convictions. And there are a gazillion reasons you could talk yourself till you're blue in the face. You could talk all day, but at the end of the day, what really happens is that you say what means most to you, because you're going to deliver that with greatest conviction.
And there are some people who say that voting for a third party, in particular the Green Party, is taking a vote away from Joe Biden. That is absolute nonsense. Because what we have found is that most people who have voted for the Green Party or voted for third parties in the past wouldn't have voted for one of the two major candidates anyway. So we're not taking votes away. A vote for Biden is a vote for Biden, a vote for Trump is a vote for Trump, and a vote for Jill Stein is a vote for Jill Stein. And that is the way the math works. There is no such thing as taking a vote away from another candidate. And I want to add, just for people who are so worried about why the Democrats might lose or should get the vote instead, I want to ask you a couple of questions. Are the Democrats committed to making things better? I don't think that they are. I haven't seen any evidence that Democrats are committed to making things better. And then second question is, well, are they committed to stopping things getting worse? They're not committed to stopping things getting worse either. So if they're not making things better and they're not stopping things from getting worse, why do they get your vote? To me, that is not earning a vote. I bought into it for a long time as a member of the Democratic Party, but I was inside the Democratic Party, and I saw how the Democratic Party shut down because of their corporate donors. I saw them shut down progressives time and time again. And we see it all over the country. Jill?
Yeah, I mean, this is all about being willing and able to call them out for their BS. And I just want to note that we are now at 8,000, almost 8,700.
And we did get a max out contribution.
Wow.
Scroll back to see the name. I saw the name and it passed by so quickly.
Incredible.
So it's Monaco Molinar.
Wow. Thank you, Monaco.
$3,300. That is absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. And Sharon Bloom, $45. We really appreciate it. Monaco, $250 of that is going to be matched by the federal government.
Yes.
So
it's even more. It's like a $3,500.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, and I'd encourage anybody, you know, whatever you can comfortably afford, just throw it into the hat here, because if everybody's giving something, it really moves the needle forward. And we badly need to do it right now, because we've just had, I think, this huge victory. In my view, this is a real victory in New York, because what's more important than the oppressive ballot access laws that New York has rigged, essentially, what's more important, we're going to fight those in court. But the most important thing here, you couldn't buy with $1 million. And that is the engagement of really thousands of volunteers who have now really connected with this campaign and see it as essential to their future, which it really is. And by way of rejecting this propaganda of powerlessness, that we can't vote for who we are and what we need, we have to keep voting for the oppressors who keep, you know, destroying our future. Another thing to throw at them is what actually is a spoiled election. The worst spoiled election ever was in 2010, when the Democrats lost, get this, 1,000 seats in state legislatures all across the country. They lost 64 seats in Congress, which is absolutely unparalleled. They lost 13 seats in the Senate, and they lost 13 governorships. It was just a total wipeout for Democrats. Who was the spoiler? There was no third-party spoiler. That's what they try to blame it on. There was the Democrats who had betrayed their base. They are spoiling the election for themselves. What had just happened before that election of 2010 is that the Democrats had bailed out Wall Street to the tune of trillions of dollars and had thrown homeowners out of their homes after the crooks on Wall Street crashed the economy. They got a bailout against the expressed wishes of the American people. So the American people were furious in 2010. Well, you know what? The American people are furious in 2024 because it's our whole lives. It's student debt. It's medical debt that we don't need to have. It is the squandering of our tax dollars on these horrific, endless wars that make us less safe, not more safe. The American people are furious. So, that's why just push back. If anybody tries to pull this BS on you that you owe the Democrats their vote, just, tell them a gazillion reasons why that's not true. And if you can throw something into the pot, do that, because the time really is now. We need to build up another head of steam. It was amazing to see what happened in New York State. It was so inspiring to see all these people telling us they had never supported a candidate before. Remember that as well. The largest block of voters are those who refuse to vote for either of the major party candidates. Those are our base. These are voters who are largely of color, who are young, and who are low income. That is the base that can be mobilized if we get on the ballot and we get the word out. So your contributions will make all the difference. If you can throw whatever you can into the hat.
I'm going to throw
every
one more.
contribution.
I'm going to throw one more reason why we have to replace the corporate duopoly, and that is climate change. And we have not talked about climate change on this in this event right now. But when we talk about what are the Democrats not doing, Joe Biden has now approved the largest oil export terminal off of Freeport, Texas. Against the express wishes of that community. It's going to cause environmental devastation in that area in the Gulf of Mexico, where we have already seen the worst environmental disaster a decade ago, or what was that? It's now 14 years ago. But when we have an administration that continues, and the Republicans are doing it too. Let's not blame the Democrats wholly about the military-industrial complex, but you would think that the Democrats might push back against the massive military spending, but they are just absolutely flat out for more military spending. And understand that what this comes from is that both of the major parties take money from the same corporations. The environmental disaster from the train derailment in East Palestine, where those residents have still not been made whole and are still suffering health concerns, devastating health concerns, can't return to their homes a year later. That I think Norfolk Southern said they were going to pay $15 million. That is, I calculated it. It was less than 1/5 of 1% of their profits. So when they say, oh, we're going to spend $15 million on environmental cleanup, they're an $8 billion company, and they both contribute to they contribute to both Democrats and Republicans. And it happens with every industry and every major company. They are all contributing to get their pound of flesh of the American public through this corporate duopoly. And the only way that we're going to get out of this is to elect somebody like Jill Stein and to start pushing things through a real grassroots democracy. That's what we're working for here. So Jill, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that another one of the amazing congressional candidates that we will be running with is none other than Jason Call, who is a candidate for Congress in Washington's 2nd District. So we have a really strong team here. And another time we will be pushing for contributions to keep their campaigns going strong. But right now we want to follow on the strength of New York City and this uprising of all these amazing new grassroots volunteers. Let's honor that work by ensuring that we're going to go strong now in the upcoming ballot access drives, especially in Illinois and Indiana, and that we will be following up their fabulous work in New York with one or more lawsuits. And a big shout out right now to Mohammed Magsood, who contributed $250, Jeffrey Benson, $100, Elizabeth Mednick, $50 monthly, Jamie Nakvi, $25. That brought us up to over $9,100. And then
our very own Elena Costa
yes,
contributed
Thank you,
$250. Ian
Elena.
Sullivan, $75. Natalie Okinski, sorry, $5. We are nearing $10,000, I think. And even though we had a goal, Dejuni, $40. Lainey made her first donation to a candidate, $25.
Thank
And,
you.
you know, I want to tell you how important that is to where you get to a point where you're like, this candidate is speaking to me. I recognize the impact that this candidate can have in an election. This election is meaningful. And, you know, the number of people, sort of the percentage of people that contribute to political campaigns, you would be surprised at how low it is. So when you get to that threshold where you are, hey, I'm going to give money to this candidate, that is an extremely meaningful gesture right there. Not just the money, but just the fact that you said, you know what, this is worth me giving money to. So Lainey, I want to give you a big shout out. This is the first political contribution you've ever made. We are honored to have received it. Thank you so much.
Great. So this is like last call right now. Of course,
Yep.
you can contribute anytime, but to help us get up towards that $20,000 goal here, whatever you can do to help lift that up. People will continue to see this video on social media and on YouTube. So typically when we do a fundraiser, donations continue to come in for many hours after that. But this is our last call.
So
for
Georgia,
here.
what are we at right now? Can you give us a and I just wanted to note that Karen Oliveira, sorry if I said that right, Oliveira, says in Phoenix, Arizona, it's 102 degrees right now. So the temperatures are rising. We've had massive heat wave in India.
New Delhi, 120
over 120 degrees. And we have not even gotten to the hottest part of the summer yet. Actually, we're not even really close. We don't, we've got another 2 months to go before we hit really the peak of summer. And so there's going to be so many people suffering this year. I want us to keep them and who do not have the relief that we here in the United States can step into an air-conditioned room. That is not the case for billions of people around the world. There's going to be a lot of suffering, and I want to lay that suffering directly at the feet of the capitalists who do not want to share, who want to suck wealth right to the top 1%. That's where all of this comes from. And we have to do better for the world. So this campaign really is about speaking to the need to have a better planet for everybody. So people are really going to be suffering this summer.
We are at,
Jill.
we are at 9,759. So we need 241 to hit the 10,000 mark, which would be a great way to wrap up. So if you can throw in $10, $15, $5, a few of those will get us in the striking distance here of getting to 10K, which would be really huge.
Yeah, absolutely. We will be happy. We will be happy.
Oh man, and Karen,
Thank
Tara,
you so much.
thank you so much. She just closed us out basically at 250. Thank you so much. That's awesome.
$10,000 is a milestone. We're very happy with that. As people watch Daniel A. Gardner and Robert Judge, $75 each.
Oh
so
man, thank
the money
you.
will still come in.
Wow.
So even though we're going to close out the event here in the next couple of minutes, please continue to share. Nada, thank you so much. Nada-san, $50. Please continue to share
and
the
Kelly,
campaign.
50. Woo!
Amazing, amazing. Thank you, Kelly. We actually are putting a time limit on it at an hour and a half. We started I'm on the West Coast. It was 4:30 p.m. and we're about 4 minutes to 6 p.m. So we were going to put a time limit on an hour and a half. So we're not going to stay on any longer than that. But everybody, I mean, we don't really have anything more to say about the strength of the campaign right now. We've kind of laid it all out on the table. People understand where we're at. What's at stake right now is Illinois, secondary to Illinois, and not in, it's just the next, chronologically secondary to Illinois is Indiana. And then we have a whole host of other states that we are working hard to get on the ballot and intend to be on the ballot. And then we're going to fight this battle in New York. And we still have a mindset and an optimism that we are going to be on the ballot in all 50 states. We're so happy Trump got convicted. I want to say, I think a lot of criticism of sometimes people on the left is that we go hard after Democrats and we don't go hard enough after Republicans. But there's not a person in this room here who wants to see a Republican win anything at all. So the fact that Trump got convicted, because he would do just as badly as Joe Biden, everybody knows that. The idea that we are a spoiler for Trump, it could not be further from the truth. Trump's a criminal. I hope they put him in prison, and I'm glad to see that he got convicted. But neither Biden nor Trump are acceptable for our future. And so we have to do better. Jill, do you want to close it out?
Yeah, I mean, we must say no to genocide Joe, and we must say dump genocide Trump. One disaster is not preferable to another. Both are absolutely unacceptable. We do have the power in this election. We actually have the power to win this election, which would be a truly grassroots representative statement on behalf of the American people and what are our values and what do we demand for our future. Nothing less than an America and a world that works for all of us. This actually is within our reach if we stand up with the courage of our convictions and demand it now. Holding off for another election cycle, there may not be another election. And it's not just Trump who, makes that fascist threat. The fascist threat is here right now. It's expanding rapidly under the Democrats. And remember, it's the Democrats who fund the most extremist of the Republicans. In case you didn't know about this tactic, this was the so-called Pied Piper strategy of the Democrats. That's why they elevated Donald Trump to a position where he actually became a viable Republican contender in 2016. And now they continue to use that strategy. In 2022, they actually put some $50 million into the most extremist Republicans in the primary so that they would have easier battles to fight in the general. But this is, pushing the Republican Party further to the right, which then enables the Democrats to go further to the right to please their big donors.
And their corporate donors love it.
They do. And this whole system is self-destructing. The walls are caving in on us. We have no choice but to go all in now to stop empire and oligarchy and fascism and to build. Right now, this election is a perfect storm. This is a perfect storm for the political transition that's been in process for decades now. It's time to stand up and demand it happen with the courage of our convictions, knowing that we actually represent what the majority of the American people want: an America and a world that works for all of us, an end to crushing inequality and climate collapse and endless war and genocide. This is what the American people want. Let's stand up, stand together. Let's keep it going. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. Thank you for everything that you do to demand that we put people, planet, and peace over profit, and we demand the world that we deserve. Thank you all so much. Let's make it happen.
I'm going to give a couple more shout outs just because we're in the chat and I don't want to miss people. Selma, $250. Thank you so much. There was one more. David Schneider, $114. Thank you so much. I'm scrolling down. I don't see any more, and I want to give a final thank you to our honored guest, Tara Houska. Thank you so much for spending your as part of your evening with us, and we look forward to working with you more in the future. So thank you, everybody. I think we can call it a wrap.
We will, and it's a thank you to everybody who's here online and everybody who's here on social media, on YouTube. We are unstoppable together. Let's do it.
Thank you.